Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, the show in which we look at the players that Arsenal have been linked to and Arsenal could be signing this summer. It's been an interesting turn of events going around the last couple of weeks, being an Arsenal fan, having to deal with all of this chaos. But for me, I'm personally really excited to see where things go. So today we've got an exciting video talking about Amadou Diawara. Diawara is his name. Deary me. Diawara is the guy that we're linked to. There's so many Diaras. I just remember thinking of Lassana Diawara, of course, an Arsenal legend in himself. But no, Amadou Diawara is the guy that we're linked to from Roma. And he's someone that specifically I'm quite interested in because I'm looking at him as a player that could be a cheaper alternative to, of course, Thomas Partey. And it's going to be intriguing to see whether or not Arsenal even end up getting someone in that area because there's so many options at such high prices, even during this COVID-19 situation, that it could put the Gunners off. Before we jump into the rest of the video, please make sure you hit a like on the video. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new around here and turn those notifications on so you never miss a show. We're going to jump straight into our expert, Rich Hall, of course, from Footballitalia and the Gentleman Ultra. Fantastic knowledge around all things Italian football. So let's do that.
When assessing Amadou Diawara overall for whether he's worthwhile for Arsenal is difficult for me to talk about really in some respects because of two reasons. One, he's never really had probably a long enough run of games apart from his first season in Bologna to really prove that he can develop in the level that everyone expects him to. This is a typical thing that I think Arsenal fans will get frustrated with because number one, we're talking about potential here. 23 years old, yes, this club's in for him. Very good holding player. Very good at intercepting the ball and reusing it. Not the best in the air, I have to say. Not going to get you many goals. But I think the one thing that will worry Arsenal fans more than anything else is the injury situation with him. More than anything, when he was at Napoli, he's out with a muscle injury and he was out for 72 days with that. And that was only back in the 18-19 season. Following up then, since he's moved to Roma, they really thought he was going to be this player who's going to break up their play and really set, especially in Fonseca's system, some of the wingers really in action, people like Justin Kluivert and now Mkhitaryan, who you guys know already, and really break that up and see those players explode afterwards. He's not been able to perform that because he's had a meniscal laceration, which kept him out for 29 days. Then he's had another meniscal injury, which has kept him out for another 43 days. So a lot of Arsenal fans are going to be looking at this and thinking, well, hold on a second. 23-year-old, young player, potentially another defensive midfielder that you guys have probably been needing for quite some time. Potentially, yes, he's there, but is he a cheap option? I don't think so, really, because Roma, at the end of the day, know that they've got this player that they bought for a reasonable amount. I think it's around 18 million euros. So they can wait. They're in no rush to sell him. They know there's interest in, so they can drive the price up. They're not probably going to part with him for about 30 million euros. So, again, is he the sort of player... For me, it's a bit of a gamble. You could easily go and purchase this guy for 30 million euros, take him from Roma. He stays fit and becomes one of the, a lot of people in Italy think that he could potentially be one of the best midfielders around in that particular role. For me, there's other options in Italy that potentially at the moment are better. People like Alan from Napoli. But again, this depends on this guy staying fit. And again, at 23 years old, and we're talking that he's missed, well, I've mentioned how many days earlier on of injury, I think it could be a little bit of a risk. However, you go out there, you get this guy, and he stays fit, and you have a real player in your hands. So, not probably what you guys were hoping for, but, let's wait and see. But the biggest thing for me is the money you would probably pay for some of your original targets isn't going to be 2 million miles off what you would pay for this guy in the end at 30 million euros. And, it's a gamble.
Yeah, it's a gamble. Something that's being said all too often about players that are linked to Arsenal, it's fair to say. Huge thank you to Rich. You can check him out on Twitter at Ritual18. Of course, go check out Footballitalia and the Gentleman Ultra. Amazing stuff on Italian football going on there. I want to pick up on some of the points that Rich said there. For me, if you're looking at someone that's rated as possibly and could be one of the best defensive midfielders in Italy, that instantly switches you on to think, wow, Arsenal could have a real player on their hands. But Arsenal and injuries and the luck that goes with them just does not happen. I mean, yes, I get there's a percentage chance that he could never be injured again and play forever, but we know and history tells us that that is probably not going to be the case. Just look at our luck with Skodran Mustafi ahead of the FA Cup final. He gets into form, he gets injured. And I know they're completely unrelated, but I don't want to be taking too many risks on players that have especially muscular injuries. The things that we saw of Aaron Ramsey were all because of muscular injuries. And I don't want to see that type of reoccurrence happen at Arsenal to players that we would consider really important to the type of football that we want to play. But it's still important that we look into the statistics because things could outweigh it in terms of just luck. And it's important to do that. So if we go and have a look at Y-Scout, which is the site that we use to look at statistics. I'm looking at Diawara's defensive stats here. In terms of defensive duels won, 7.44 being made in every game with a 53.9% win rate. Now, if I compare that to Thomas Partey does a similar amount of defensive duels, but he wins 63.1 of those defensive duels. So there's that. Rich talked about his aerial ability, and there's a reason why it is so low. While he does admittedly win 40.9% of the aerial duels he gets involved in, he's only doing 1.16 per game. If we have a look at his overview, it should tell me his height. So his height is... Does it not tell me his height? That's really frustrating. It should do. I will find you his height in just a second. But in terms of looking at his aerial duels, I think that when you compare it to Thomas Partey is doing 3 times as many aerial duels and he's winning 66% of those. And I'm looking at someone that plays the defensive midfield position, and we really need to be looking at someone that can win headers in the box, can head the ball away, and ultimately, when you're looking at someone in that position, they need to be a physical player. And Arsenal have lacked that so often in their side. Someone that can come in and really play a position that's going to scare the opposition. Looking online, it's just over 6 foot. And for someone who's not winning that many aerial headers, when he's over 6 foot in height, he's probably slightly concerning. If we have a look at his heat map, for a defensive player, that heat map to me is odd. Because can you see how much intensity there is in the opposition's half? Maybe he likes playing on the front foot. Maybe he likes winning the ball as much as he can in the opposition's half. And we can actually check that by looking at the recoveries slightly further to the right-hand side of your screen. 7.44 recoveries and 53.2% of those happen in the opposition's half. And that's great. And that's great to see that. But it could mean that he's caught out of possession quite a bit. Rich talked about the amount of interceptions that he makes. He makes just over 4 of those per game. And losses, 5 losses per game, which is less than his recovery, which is good. But 34.7 of the losses that he has are in his own half, which would leave us quite vulnerable. Let's take a look at his passing statistics, and I'll come into some of the graphics. 90% passing accuracy is good. Nearly 60% long passing accuracy is okay. It's pretty good. And something that Arteta would definitely want in his side. Passing to his final third, 82.8% is really strong. But passing to the box, Rich talked about him. He's disciplined in the sense that whilst he might want to win the ball back in sort of just past the halfway line, you're not typically going to see him being a creative force in that midfield. Forward to backward passes is a strong ratio. But let's have a look at some of the graphics and some of the instances that I've seen him in watching back and looking and doing a bit more research. You can see that he dives in. and in some of the tackles that I was looking at him do in games, he will dive in and he will lunge into these tackles. And defensively, he's only doing, on average, 1 slide tackle every 5 games. But the success rate of those is 0%. He hasn't won a single one of those, and yet he continues to do it. And the top 2 tackles that were on the Y-Scout sort of system was this one against Udinese, which is a foul. And then you have this one, which he does win, but it's on the verge against Fiorentina of being a foul again. And it's a loose ball in this position where he does get there, and both players end up going for it as a bit of a 50-50. But he doesn't shy away from those challenges. And you can look at that as a positive, but there's also other things that mean that we don't really want to see too much ill discipline from the player. He hasn't received any red cards, but he has had 4 yellows so far this season, which I suppose isn't many when you compare that to Xhaka's 10. If we then take a look at some of the positive things, he's quite good at reading the game. In this game against Genoa, the ball's being played through to Snabry. You can see that Chris Smalling is not doing the best of jobs of covering that position. He's got his left back there that has to deal with, yes, the right winger, but he leaves his other centre-backs completely out of position. And Diawara does really well to get back here and get the ball and play it out wide for an opposition throw-in. But it deals with the danger, and he judges that really well. You've also got a situation here against arguably the best player in the world to some, maybe not to others. But Cristiano Ronaldo against Juventus, running through. Look at the speed that the Portuguese man has. We know he's rapid. We know he's got great skill. And he tries that technical Ronaldo chop that we see him do. And Diawara reads it really well and managed to get the tackle in, which is also great. Rich talked about his technical ability on the ball too, which I want to highlight with this example against Genoa in that game we looked at earlier. He's in a position here where he's surrounded by 4 players. Yes, he's got the short option, but it would put his team out under pressure. You've got that whole space to the right-hand side of the pitch, and he uses his body really well and his technical ability to shift the ball right, and he finds that space and manages to pass the ball out to a teammate. So I'm liking the technical ability that I can see from him, but ultimately there are issues with his game. Diving in for tackles, issues with what he's doing on the pitch regards to like aerially, and the way that he challenges for aerial balls is worrying. And then it comes down to price. We talked about it being a cheaper option than Thomas Partey, but 30 million euros for someone that has injury issues, that could still cause a few issues in terms of maybe sliding tackles and lunges, but I still have a lot of potential at 23 years old. It's torn me. I'm leaning on the side of, if you're going to go and spend 30 million on someone like Diawara, I think it's probably worth going the extra mile to get in a Thomas Partey who does supersede Diawara in most of those stats. Yes, he's 4 years or so older, but you'd be getting a player in his prime, and we desperately need a transformative midfielder to come in and do a job from the off, not someone that we're looking at prospectively that could be doing it in the future. Let me know what you think, though, because ultimately this is really key to get your thoughts. And while we're on the subject of getting your thoughts, the comments that we had on yesterday's Tactical Breakdown podcast interview with David Webb, the former Huddersfield Town head of football operations, was amazing. Your support has been fantastic. The website is obviously live. We put out an article yesterday building on from that interview on Emile Smith Road. Please make sure you go and check it out. The link to the website is in the description. And also I wanted to highlight, of course, our expert members that help us week in and week out to do the amazing things that we can do on this channel. Robert, Abdullah, Root, Grass, Afnan, Clarify, Zamir, Ashwin, Aaron, Owen, Mike, Cole, Gary, Matt, PM, Olesola, Glenn, and our new member, Mosaic Art, as well. Thank you ever so much to you guys for giving us the support and helping the channel be what it is becoming, which is an amazing thing right now. So thank you so much. Please drop a like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and turn those notifications on so you never miss a show. I'm hoping to get some more articles out to you. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the FA Cup final. We'll have a preview for that on Thursday, and of course one on Friday too, fingers crossed. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Thanks again to Rich for helping us with the video, and we'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.